Oh,
Hey, Crystal, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, so I got the files that you sent me. So hold on one second.
Hmm.
If you have any questions about doing the breakdown, I took a look at it. Seems like you have a pretty good handle on it.
I think there's something wrong with the audio. Um,
On what's it doing?
because I can't really understand your voice because it's coming out really deep.
Okay, hold on.
All right, is that any better?
Oh no, yeah, yeah, for sure, that's better.
Yeah, had some settings on the microphone were wrong. All right, so hold on, give me 1 second, and I'll bring up the strip board that you sent me.
Hmm. Yeah, it was just the main page, the one where you number the
Right,
characters.
right.
Because I'm still working on the individual sort of strips. Yeah.
Okay, so on your screen, can you see the copy of the strip board or the breakdown sheet?
Yes.
Okay, so this is for the first scene. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna grab a copy of my script. Okay, so you've got so this goes pages 1 through 6, right?
Yeah.
All right, so it looks. Let me see if I can zoom in. I'm not sure if I can. Nope, guess not. Yeah, it looks like you've got everything correct. Um,
The only thing I was unsure about is set dressing, and that's why I put page for scene one and two.
yes,
Because I think for the set dressing, I wasn't sure if it's kind of like making sure that we have the window wall that we have to build.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, in terms of the breakdown that you're doing here, we're just looking for basic scheduling concerns. Like a perfect example would be if there's a really complicated set that needs to be built, that's going to factor into the the timeline of if that's going to be our first day of shooting, then we've got to make sure that that gets done well before we start shooting, right? And so for the set dressing, from a UPM's perspective, at least at this point, it's not that's not critical. I think for you, the most important things to be thinking about are things that are going to require a lot of planning or a lot of time and are going to be really expensive. So, you've got all of the really important stuff here, like you've got the cast, the characters that are involved, because that's obviously going to be one of the things that we think about when we do our scheduling, right?
mhm.
Props are good. The production design department is going to be more concerned with getting every single prop that they might need to either create or borrow or buy or steal or whatever. And then once they've identified all this stuff, and then they'll get in, that'll be when you come into it in terms of making sure that if there needs to be some sort of a contract with a rental house or whatever, you'd be involved in sort of being the contact point for that, and the production team would report to you, or the design team would report to you in terms of what they finally decided they needed. And so on the breakdown sheet for you, there's really nothing other than at this point thinking about scheduling and then of course budgeting, right? And so
Hmm.
on this sheet, you got it, what you need. I mean, you nailed it. It's definitely it's done correctly. We've got the opening scene with Ensign, Mason, and Bond, and yes, we'll be in the studio for that. How far have you gotten through the breakdown sheets?
Well, I it's because I met with Autumn and I gave her some of my breakdown sheets and I was
Oh, okay.
going.
So you met with Autumn because I haven't heard from Autumn in since she went home sick that last day of class.
No, yeah, I met with her and I gave her some breakdown sheets and all the other sheets too. The only thing is that she doesn't have the main strip board sort of page that you start
Okay.
off with
Okay.
because I only had one page of that. But I gave her the rest of like my breakdown sheets. So I've just been writing on a regular piece of paper
Yeah, that's
until
fine.
I'm able to print more.
Yeah, that's fine. I can. I forgot to post a link for you for all the forms where you can get all of the different forms that you're going to need. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so what I would like you to do for the next few days, and I certainly don't expect this to be done by tomorrow, but finish going through. I will. Hold on, let me get a notepad so I can make some notes.
But I've just been writing on regular like note paper, kind of the
Yeah,
same
that's
info.
fine. There's
Yeah.
no problem with that. All right, so I will make sure to post the blank breakdown sheets so that you can make as many of you as you need.
Hmm.
And then what I would like you to focus on this week is thinking about the finish the breakdown sheets. I think we have a total of 21 scenes, right?
Mm, yeah, pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I think there's a total of 21 scenes. So finish the breakdown sheets, and
Mhm.
then we can the important thing is to start thinking about a schedule because we're looking at our first day of principal is supposed to be March the 5th, and so we kind of want to be able to when we post the casting notice next week, we want to make sure that we can let the potential cast know what days we're looking at.
Mhm.
So when you go through, after you've done the breakdown sheets, right?
Mhm.
Once you've finished the breakdown sheets themselves, that's when we start looking at the schedule. Let me pull up one. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up that sample um, schedule that I sent you as part of your packet. And by the way, did you get the email that I sent with the instructions or what goes in each of those strips?
Yeah, I did. And I
Okay.
found the other example strips
Oh, okay. Great. Did
in
that
from the
help?
packet. Yeah, it did. It did help. So I'm able to like finish through those strips.
Great. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying. I'm working on a different computer, so I'm trying to find what I did with this. It's got. I know it's here somewhere. So, have you gotten any other are there any other questions that have come up so far?
Um, Let me see. I think it was just the main one about the set dressing.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I mean, the more detailed that you can be, that's great. But really, at this point, for as a UPM, the production design team really hasn't come up with what the set dressing is going to be yet. So anything that you put down is sort of just a guess anyway. But there's nothing wrong with go ahead and for example, the one thing I would note on that very first scene it calls for a fire in a fireplace, and as a UPM, that should set off a little red flag for you, saying, okay, this could be something pretty complicated. And so I would just in the section on the breakdown sheet where it has production notes or producers notes, I would just make a little note there saying, okay, we're, number one, there's the possibility that we're going to do this with practical fire on set, which is a safety issue. And so in the real world, we may have to hire a fire safety officer or something like that. And so that would be a UPM's concern because that's more money, right? And so the UPM is, of course, always worried about more money.
Mhm.
And so that would be the only thing I would say in terms of set design or set dressing, or things that stick out in your mind that you think, oh yeah, this is going to be expensive. Um,
Okay.
but other than that, you're at this point mostly just looking for schedule things and like, okay, so how long is it going to take to shoot this? Um, how many days are we going to have? How much is this going to cost?
Okay. Oh, the other thing was
Yeah.
for that one day that we're going to be in Paramount Ranch,
Yes. Hmm.
is I was guessing that the church scene is kind of what we're doing over there at Paramount.
Well, see, yeah, that's I've been looking at that, and I'm not sure that we do want to do it at Paramount for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't know if you've been in that church out there, but it's
Mhm.
completely empty, and so there's nothing. There aren't pews, isn't an altar, there's nothing that you would find in a church. And so that's going to be a lot of work trying to recreate that. It might actually be easier to do something small in the soundstage. And then the second reason why I might be inclined to say we're not going to shoot the last scene out at Paramount is because it's going to be pretty complicated in terms of the special effects,
Mhm.
and it's going to be easier to do it in a controlled environment. So as when we start looking at the scheduling, that would be what I'm that would be the way I'm leaning actually.
Okay.
But that would be definitely something that as the UPM you would be concerned with.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm cannot find what I'm looking for. Hold on. So in terms of the story in general, what are your thoughts? I'm going to be meeting with the writers in a few minutes. Um, so there we're going to be talking about story issues and so on and so forth. But did you is there anything that stuck out at you uh, as in terms of a major concern?
Oh, yeah, the beast itself,
Yeah,
because the way it's described is like it's gonna have lots of tentacle-like
yeah, yeah,
appendages, and I was thinking like the red eyes that could be something like we could do, but like making the body itself this like gigantic, tall tentacle.
yeah. No, absolutely. I've got the last meeting I have this morning is going to be with the special effects team, and a couple of them have sent me some visual references that I think Let's see if I can pull this up because it's pretty. It actually is a pretty interesting look that um, we might be able to pull off pretty easily.
Oh, okay.
And it actually looks pretty freaking scary if you ask me.
Cool.
All right, so let me share this with you. All right, you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. Yes.
Yeah, that is.
And so I mean that could be, you know, depending upon what the effects team decides, you know, works for us. That I think is definitely within our capabilities in terms of effects makeup and creating that look. And so in terms of the glowing eyes, that, you know, we could simply do that with some low powered red LEDs, but I'm going to leave that up to the effects team. But I mean, for me, that's a, you know, obviously we put our own spin on it, but that's pretty scary, you know. And if we put somebody on some stilts, you know, with a big black robe and, you know, the veils, I think that would work. Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, I know if I saw that thing coming at me in the middle of the night, I certainly I wouldn't stick around for very long,
Mhm.
right? And
Okay.
so I think, you know, obviously, that's, you know, creating the creature is going to be one of the tough, you know, one of the things that's going to be tough uh, for the effects team. But, you know, I think for me that's what makes it fun. So let me share with you the strip board that I included in your UPM's packet. Okay, can you see that on the thing?
Yes.
All right, and so this first page is exactly the way you filled out yours, and you did yours correctly, which is great. The only thing is down here. Do you see my cursor?
No.
Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so down here in the character section, you filled it out just fine. I would be more general in the one that you filled out. You did uh, like townspeople, piano player, barkeeper, poker player, group of church women, baby. The barkeeper I would actually put up as a character because he's got a speaking role,
Oh.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the general rule of thumb for me, and some producers do it a little, if they speak, then they're characters. If they don't speak, then they would be background extras or extras. And so, like the unidentified townspeople, yeah, people, townsperson one or two, piano player, poker players, that's perfect for extras. And at this stage of the game, we haven't even done the casting yet. So for the UPM, you could just simply list them as extras, right? They don't need to be specific because keep in mind what the purpose of what we're doing at this stage is. It's about scheduling, right? So as long as we know that we need to have 3 extras that day or 6 extras or whatever it's going to be, the
Mm-hmm.
reality of it is the only day we're going to need extras is. Well, no, that's not true. If we end up doing the church interior church scenes in the studio, then of course we'll need some the townspeople, you know, so on and so forth. The one thing that I uh, would suggest is with the Beast, even though the Beast doesn't really speak, I would certainly list that as a character just because that's a major element that we have to, you know, we have to think about. And the thing we're going to look at now is really uh, where all of these strips that you're creating come into play. And that's about how do we arrange this thing as a schedule, right? And so on the page that you see here, this is an actual go, and it was really simple. We only had 2 characters, and I think we ended up with something like 23 or 24 scenes. So it's pretty comparable in terms of the amount of shooting to what we're going to be undertaking. And if you see on the right hand side here, all of these strips have been arranged into days, right? You
Mm-hmm.
see that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the very first page that's to the right of uh, the main sheet, this little strip here, this gray bar, you see it?
Yes.
It says end of shooting day one. This is a visual reference for us so that we know that we've got, you know, how many days, how many pages we're shooting for that whole day. And so look at these 3 strips. And at the very top, we've got scene 3, scene 6, scene 10, 12, and 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then beneath that, we've got the page count. This is the very first step that you want to take when you're starting to strip board out your production is the total number of pages you're going to work in a day. Now, the general rule is I wouldn't attempt more than 4 pages in my schedule. Um, because remember last when you took the production class last term, right? We became real aware real quick how long it takes just to shoot a couple of pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind that there's a difference between 4 pages of dialogue and 4 pages of the monster eating a baby, right? Because the
Mm-hmm.
4 pages of dialogue, with a relatively skilled crew, we can knock that out in 6 hours, no problem. But 1 page of the monster eating a baby, could take an entire day of production. And so when you're looking at the total number of pages, always take into consideration how complicated those pages are. Right? If it's the chase scene from French Connection, um, I don't care. On paper that may have only taken up 2 pages, but I guarantee you it took them 2 or 3 weeks to film that entire sequence. So think about how complicated the in a general sense. Filming dialogue that's just sitting in a cafe, pretty simple. But if we're talking about something that's pretty complicated, then that's going to change the number of pages that you want to schedule in the day. So as a UPM, your job is to look at the strips that you created based upon your breakdowns, right? And figure out, okay, you give yourself a rule of thumb that we're going to try to shoot 4 pages per day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then look at each of these scenes and say, okay, adding all this up, we've got 4 7/8 pages, right? Which is certainly doable, right? And in this, you've never seen this script, but it's all talking basically, and so this is real simple to. This would be really simple to shoot. And so once you've figured out, okay, we're going to shoot 4 pages, the next thing to do is start breaking it down first by location. Okay, the first thing we want to take into consideration is location. What I mean by that is you want to try to group all of your locations together. And so for our project, when you're looking at the order of the scenes, obviously everything that we're shooting at Paramount is going to be all on the same day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all going to be on the very last day of production, right? Which will be April the 30th. Yeah. And
Yes.
so right off the bat that all of those scenes you can push to the very end of the production board. And so you see here, every day we group some scenes, and then at the end of the day we shoot on day two. We shot 3 and 4/8 pages, so on and so forth until the very last day. And then on the very last day, wait, on the very last day, you see we've got one strip that says end of shooting day 5, which was basically the wrap for production. So we had 5 shooting days for this, right? Um,
Yes.
and so notice, let me go back to the first page. Notice what is common about this. Um, this is scene 3, right? And the location is Taylor Naughton's dark room. They're all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we grouped all of those in that particular location together. For us, I've already gone through and I've broken down the script myself and I've put together sort of like a tentative idea about schedule. And so I'm kind of familiar with how I think this is all going to play out. But we've got a bunch of scenes in the interior of the hotel room, right? In Von Anson's hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
Those we'll shoot all together, or at least we'll group them together. Maybe not on the same day, but they'll all be grouped together because they're the same set. A rule of thumb in production is always that you want to shoot out one location before you move on to the next one. So in other words, if we're going to rent a house somewhere, we wouldn't schedule one scene in that house on day 1 and then go shoot somewhere else and then come back on day 6, because that's not very efficient. And so always try to keep those locations together, and we don't change to a new location unless we absolutely have to, before we've completed everything. And so when you start putting the strips together, once you've got everything transferred to those strips, just cut them up and just lay them out on a table and start moving them around so you can put them in the right order, right?
Mhm.
Do you have any questions about that?
No. I'm noticing that these strips that you have are they have like different colors
Hmm.
or wouldn't
Yeah,
on
I
these
did
strips?
these. I To create this, I usually do all of my scheduling in a program called Movie Magic Scheduling. It's just an automated way of doing what you're doing with the pieces of paper that I gave you.
Mhm.
The color coding is pretty standard within the production industry. Uh, they're coded by, excuse me, interior and day and night, right? And so in all interior night shots are going to have a green a green strip, right?
Mhm.
Then if you go to interior morning, they're pink. Exterior day is goldenrod, right? And so
Mhm.
you can assign them any color that works for you. It just so happens that these are the default colors within the program. And so when you're looking at the strip board, you know immediately what type of scene you're I mean what type of shooting day you're looking at, right? So I know by looking at this that these are all interior night shots, right?
Okay.
And so the first thing is you group it by location, and then the second thing is you're going to group it by interior versus exterior. So, for example, if we were okay, a really good example is one of the scenes is going to be in the saloon out at Paramount, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also an exterior scene where we've got to get a shot of him walking into the saloon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you would want to then figure out, is it more efficient to shoot the exterior first and then go on and shoot the interior, or should we wait and do all of these little exterior pickup shots at the very end, right? And
Okay.
so the first thing is you want to make sure that all of your locations are being used efficiently, and you group those together. And then do you want to shoot all the interiors first, exterior? And then also take into consideration, do we want to shoot the day scenes or the night scenes first? Now, if it's a night exterior, then, that kind of limits what your choices are, right? You can either actually shoot it at night or you can shoot it as day for night, which is what we're going to be doing. Okay, we've got two scenes that are exteriors that we're going to have to shoot day for night, right? And so there are certain technical things that we want to make sure that we do in order to make that look as believable as possible. And one of them is shoot it not at high noon, either early in the morning or late in the afternoon when the sun's low in the sky. And so that, as a production manager, that kind of says, okay, we're going to either schedule those day for nights in the morning or we're going to schedule them in the evening, but we're not going to schedule them at high noon. And so you just sort of go through and look at all of the different things that each of these scenes brings with it and try to group them together so that it's really, really efficient. Another thing that you're going to look at after that is the cast. And if you see here, you can see that actor number one is needed all day long, right? He's in
Mm-hmm.
scene 7, 16, 11, and 24. But actor number 2 is only in scene 11 and 24. Now, from a scheduling perspective, I wouldn't want to put scene 11 as the very first shot of the day and scene 24 as the very last shot of the day unless I absolutely had to. And the reason for that is now this actor, number 2, for a half a day. If
Mm-hmm.
I have him come in for the very first scene of the day and he has to stay for the very last scene of the day, he plus I've got to give him lunch. And so as a UPM, we're always thinking about stuff like that. And so if we can schedule, actors to get it done in a half a day, then that's what we do, right? And so for you, as you're going through the different strips that you've created, those are the things that you're looking at. And the only word of advice I can give you, Crystal, is just it's all trial and error. You know what? It really is. It's all trial and error, and you're going to put a strip board together and you're going to look at it, and then an actor is going to call up and say, listen, I'm not available on this day. And so then that throws the entire schedule out of whack, and you got to go back and redo the strip board. So the order of these strips is gonna go. It's going to go through a bunch of different versions. Okay, I know it sounds kind of complicated, and it, I'm sure you're a little bit confused right now, but in reality, it's not nearly as complicated as it sounds. It's just a matter of thinking logically. Yeah, you've got enough production experience under your belt that you have a pretty good feel for, uh, you know, what it's going to take to shoot a lot of these different scenes, and so just use your judgment in terms of figuring out, how much to allow. And so, do you have any questions about that?
No, not at this moment.
Okay. And then one last thing, I want to, like I said, uh, I created I basically went through and took a look at, um, I took a look at what we've got, and I'm going to open up the basic that I've come up with, and this is, just a real quick look at it last night. You see that on the do you have the Creative Cloud?
Yeah, I do.
Have you ever used Adobe Story?
No, I haven't.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this project with you, and you can open this up. What you're seeing on your screen, you can open it up in Adobe Story.
Oh,
And this is where I created this schedule, because I didn't want to do it in Movie Magic scheduling, just because it was, nobody else has access to it. Okay, and so look at the way I've gotten this uh, scheduled. All right, so this is our very first day of shooting, which is March 5th. Yes.
mm-hmm.
Here I've got the actors that are needed: Bond, not the actors, but the characters: Bond, Mason, and Ensign. It's a night scene interior. This STU stands for studio. We're going to be shooting this in the studio. This is the study, right? Um, Actually, I don't know if this is. Uh, Where is? Hold on. All right, so I'm not seeing. All right, this is. I'm gonna have to go back and. Oh no, I'm sorry. Right here. This is the very first one is in white. See it?
Oh,
This one
okay.
here. I was looking at the wrong one. So our very first day is Monday, March 5th. I've got us scheduled to do the interior train car scene. Right.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons that I've done that is, notice this is only a page and 6/8, less than 2 pages of shooting. And the reason is it's our very first day of shooting. And you've been there when we have our very first day, right? It's really really crazy. So I have a tendency to kind of make our very first day, try to make it as simple as possible, uh, to give the crew and the actors a chance to start getting familiar with each other. But then on the next day of shooting, which is the following Monday, we're doing the study, which is almost 6 pages, right? And so we know right off the bat that that's going to be a hard day's work, because we got 6 pages to get through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day of shooting, it ends up being the 19th, and I've got the newspaper office and the hotel room scheduled all for the same day, which, from a logistical perspective, means we're going to have both sets built so that we can switch off, between the two sets. And that's something that I've got to explore with Anitra, and see, how we can pull that off. But this is basically the way, we've got 7 days of shooting plus Paramount. And then if you look at Paramount, I've arranged all of these by um, what I think is going to be the best way to shoot it. So what I'll do is I will share this with you, and so you can take a look at it. But I want you to come up with your own schedule using your strip board, and try not to let this influence you too much, because this may not be the right way to go. Like I said, I did it real quickly last night, so you might be able to come up with a more efficient way of shooting it. Does that make
Okay.
sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before I wrap with this, what are your thoughts?
Um, well, I don't have any questions right now. I just want to complete the strip
Great.
now, the
Hmm.
strip board. So I'll finish that. I'll look into Adobe Story. I'll try and get that right now. But
You can actually do it online. You can just go right online and log into it from anywhere in the web. Just
okay.
Google Adobe Story, and then when you go there, it'll say sign in, and you just sign in with your Creative Cloud account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll send you the link by email. I think if you just simply click on the link, it'll take you right to the project.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So
Okay.
then for tomorrow, what I want to do, can you meet at 12:30?
Yes.
Okay. What we'll talk about tomorrow is we'll talk about the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm,
Because I think we're at a point now where once you finish those strips, you have a pretty good idea of how much we're going to have to spend for cast and crew.
okay.
Bring you some information about the IATSE and the SAG schedules in terms of what's the scale rate. Because we're going to go ahead and budget as if we were actually paying the actors under SAG and the crew on if they were IATSE or DGA or Local 600 or whatever. Okay?
Okay.
All right. You have any more questions for me, Crystal?
Not at this moment,
Great.
but
Thank you so much for taking time this morning. I know it's the weekend and everybody's got their own thing going, so I appreciate it.
no,
Hopefully, you're finding this helpful.
no, yeah, definitely for sure.
Okay. All right. Great. So I'll talk to you tomorrow. If anything comes up, just simply email me. Okay.
Okay, for sure.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.